Hi, and welcome back to this series on getting started with meditation. Last time we talked about some of the basic setups for starting a meditation practice, how to get into meditation, and we will review some of that today, and then talk about some additional things you can start to notice as you're building a meditation practice to help you keep up with it and to help you notice how it's going as you're working on this practice. So, to begin, we'll start with a short meditation. As always, one bell to start and one bell to stop the meditation. As the sound of the bell fades, I invite you to find a comfortable position, whether you're seated in a chair or on a cushion on the floor, or on the edge of a bed. You can even do this lying down or standing up. But to take a few moments at the beginning just to find a comfortable way to position yourself so that you can stay still for a few minutes. Once you've found a comfortable posture for the body, um, maybe just scanning the attention through the body quickly from the feet through to the top of the head or the other direction, and just noticing any areas of tension or tightness, and taking a deep, satisfying, refreshing breath every time you hit one of those areas, just encouraging that tension to relax and dissolve. We're just trying to settle our bodies into the stillness of this posture as we begin to breathe in a deliberately relaxing and refreshing way. Once the body is settled and comfortable, really prioritizing our attention around the breath and the movement of the in and the out breath. First of all, just noticing how you're breathing now, to what degree that breath feels relaxing and refreshing, or perhaps there are aspects of that breath that feel tense or not so comfortable. Meditation ultimately comes down to noticing things and then making choices about those things that we notice. So noticing how the breath is now and making a choice, forming an intention to breathe in a way that is relaxing and refreshing. That may mean breathing deeper and longer, slower breaths. That may mean slightly faster breaths, slightly more shallow breaths. The choice is up to you, and you're the only one who can notice how it's going. So noticing how your breath is now and making a choice about how it could be a bit more comfortable, a bit more refreshing, a bit more relaxing. Notice where in the body you feel the sensations of the movement of the breath. That may be in the abdomen, a gentle expansion and contraction of the breath. That may be in the shoulders or the chest, subtle rise and fall with each in and out breath. That may be around the mouth or the nostrils, noticing the slightly cool air of the in-breath and the slightly warmer air of the out-breath. But noticing directly whatever physical sensations let you know the breath is moving. Prioritizing those physical sensations of the movement of the breath in your awareness. And as you continue to breathe, and to encourage the breath to be relaxing and refreshing. Noticing how the mind follows the lead of the breath. The more relaxing and refreshing the breath tends to feel, the more relaxed and refreshed the mind tends to feel. This isn't always a perfect one-to-one relationship. There are differences, but in general, these three things, the body, the breath, and the mind, influence each other in ways that we can notice and make choices about. So we settle into the posture, allow the body to be still and comfortable, using that stillness and comfort of the body as a foundation. We tune into the breath, the movement of the breath, and encourage it to be comfortable and natural. And as that breath becomes more natural and comfortable, we can begin to notice how our mind's activity calms down and follows the example set by the body and the breath. So we stack these three things on top of each other at the beginning of the meditation to give ourselves a strong foundation. Allow the body to be still and comfortable. Allow the breath to be relaxing and refreshing. And allow the mind to become interested in the physical sensations of that relaxing and comfortable way of breathing. This is a great way to get into the meditation. So I hope that review of the basic setup for getting into a meditation makes sense. The breath as a meditation object isn't everyone's favorite object of meditation, but it is perhaps the most popular object for meditation for a reason. It tends to work for people who are able to relax with the breath and allow it to become comfortable. And focusing your awareness on the movements of the breath can be the only meditation object you ever use if you work well with it. It can take you as far as you want to go in meditation. There are obviously all kinds of different ways of meditating. Just like in the last video, I talked about exercise as a metaphor for meditation. And there are many, many, many different ways to exercise. There are many, many different ways to meditate. The breath might be like a basic kind of cardio for exercise, just to sort of use that metaphor again. But you should also branch out and experiment and try different ways of meditating that may work better for you than the breath, which is why last time I shared in the second meditation a way of tuning into the different sense fields, the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile sensations, and the field of thoughts as well. You can think of those as the 6 sense doors. And that is another way of just having something to do in meditation that feels productive and relaxing and grounding. You can sort of check in with all of your different sense fields, make a catalog of whatever is available for you to notice in each sense field. And just doing that basic noticing and cataloging practice can be very grounding and refreshing. So if you find the breath kind of tedious to work with, keep that meditation in mind as a backup. If you're feeling frustrated or bored by the breath, go back to checking in with the 6 sense doors and just notice all of those fields of sensate experience. Today I want to talk about a different metaphor for meditation, flying a kite. If you've ever flown a kite yourself, or if you've ever watched a video of another person getting a kite off the ground and into the air, then hopefully this metaphor will make sense to you. But that initial setup that I walked us through in the first meditation in this video is kind of like getting your kite into the air. There's a qualitative difference you can notice from the moment you sit down to start meditating to when the meditation really starts to take shape on its own, and something different is happening with your experience that wasn't happening the moment you began the meditation. And that transition from sitting down to get started and arriving at the meditation in a way that feels like, oh, okay, this is meditating. This is what it feels like. That's sort of like getting your kite up into the air. You can think of the kite as your attention, and the air in the metaphor of the kite as your breath, if you want to work with that as an object of meditation. But the air in the metaphor of the kite really represents whatever object of meditation you're using. So if the kite is your attention, you want to get to a place where your attention is very comfortably floating on that object of meditation. So I think this metaphor works well with the breath, because the air in the kite metaphor is the breath in the meditation. And so when we are meditating on the breath, and our attention, our mind really starts to become interested and invested with energy on that object of the movement of the breath, something different happens to the mind. It's no longer interested in all the background noise and all the stories going on and the recent events that have happened in your life or the deadlines that are coming up. When you really get interested and invest some energy into the movement of the breath and noticing the physical sensations of the movement of the breath, the mind gets really relaxed and calm and focused in a way that feels refreshing, that feels rejuvenating. And when you start to notice this difference, this qualitative difference take place, that's when it can start to feel like, oh, I could sit here comfortably for a while. I could really enjoy this and sort of bask in this relaxation for quite some time. And that's like getting the kite into the air. Uh, if you've flown kites before, you know that once you get it into the air, that's when you start to have a little fun. There's a difference between the effort you have to apply when you first try to get the kite into the air versus the effort you have to apply to keep the kite in the air. So there's perhaps a lot more effort, or you could say a greater intensity of effort in that transition period from getting the kite off the ground into the air. You have to sort of toss it in the air and run with it and let the string out carefully in a way that allows it to build more space underneath and allows it to climb up higher and higher into the air. And that's like the kind of slightly more intense, focused application of effort that's necessary in the beginning of the meditation. It's not that you have to maintain that more intense effort throughout the whole meditation session, but in the beginning, the very beginning of a meditation session, really applying conscious, intentional, deliberate, persistent effort at locking the mind in with the object. That will make the rest of the meditation session feel much more relaxing and able to sort of let go and just enjoy watching your kite fly. Um, Another thing to keep in mind with this metaphor is that the wind isn't always reliable. Sometimes you have some nice wind on a day when you're flying your kite, then all of a sudden the wind just sort of drops away and then the kite plummets to the ground. You've got to start over. You've got to start back from the beginning, getting the kite off the ground back into the air. That's like getting caught in a distraction in meditation. That's like you're sitting there meditating, enjoying it, and then you remember something salty that one of your friends said to you that annoyed you, and you're like, oh, that again. And before you know it, your kite plummets back to the ground. Oh, I got caught in a memory. I got distracted. I was ruminating. Got to start this over again. So you start breathing again in a way that feels relaxing and refreshing, and you remind yourself to pay attention to those physical sensations of the breath. That's kind of like getting the kite back into the air. Once you first start flying a kite, this can be kind of tedious and annoying, but after you do it several times, after you're able to successfully get the kite into the air 5 or 10 times, it starts to feel a little bit easier every time you start to do it. Same thing with meditation. The more times that you convince yourself just to sit down and do this initial setup practice of getting the body comfortable, getting the breath comfortable, getting the mind interested and curious about the sensations of the breath, the more you go through that initial setup, the more natural it becomes and the easier it is to get from having your kite on the ground to having it in the air flying around and you're just enjoying it. Um, so that's some encouragement for you to, if you're trying to establish a meditation practice, for you to stick with it, to give yourself the opportunity to practice this setup of getting your kite up into the air, of getting your mind comfortable and buoyant and enjoying the experience of staying with the object of meditation. The more you do that, the more you can start to develop and enjoy your meditation sessions. So, getting our kites into the air. Meditating is like flying a kite. So that's the metaphor I want to encourage you to think about today. And we will close today's session with another short meditation practice. Again, one bell to start, one bell to stop. Keep in mind this metaphor of the kite getting into the air. So when you hear the first bell, that's like we're setting everything up and we're about to launch the kite and get some air underneath it. So here we go. Again, inviting you to start by finding that comfortable posture. If you moved around a little bit while I was talking, just taking a moment to fidget around, check in with the posture, notice every part of the whole body quickly. Any areas of tightness or tension or discomfort, go ahead and make any adjustments. Arrange yourself in a way that feels comfortable and relaxing, but allows you to stay alert and awake. And then begin to breathe intentionally. Begin to breathe over and over again intentionally. How can this breath be more comfortable? How can this breath be more refreshing, more relaxing? Noticing with the whole movement of the breath, from the moment the in-breath begins and the lungs fill up, to where the in-breath stops. There's a small pause, and then the exhale begins. The air goes out of the lungs, and then there's a slightly longer pause at the end of the exhale before the next in-breath begins. This whole cycle of the breath, the in-breath, the subtle pause, the out-breath, the slightly longer pause, this whole range of the movement, there are so many individual tiny physical sensations that take place within that whole range of movement that let you know how the breath is moving. So notice where in the body it's easiest for you to follow this movement of the breath, to notice the physical sensations of the movement of the breath. And try to notice individual physical sensations within that movement. So as you breathe in, from the moment the in-breath begins to the moment it pauses before the out-breath, how many physical sensations individually can you notice within that space of that one in-breath? What physical sensations let you know that the in-breath has stopped? What physical sensations let you know the out-breath is beginning? How many sensations can you notice with the out-breath? And then what physical sensations allow you to know that the out-breath is over? All these tiny little blips and buzzes of physical sensation within the movement of the breath These all come together to make up the object of the breath. So become really interested in noticing as many of these sensations as you can. Picking up on all the little details of every in-breath and every out-breath. How much energy can you bring to your curiosity about the breath, about how it feels? And we aren't trying to control the breath so much. We're really just trying to notice it intensely, however it naturally wants to be. And we're encouraging it to be comfortable and to be refreshing and relaxing. We aren't strictly trying to control the breath, but we're noticing it very closely, and we're encouraging it, we're wishing it, we're hoping for it to be natural and relaxing and refreshing. See if you can notice how the breath changes throughout the meditation. Is the way you're breathing right now for this breath a little bit different from the way you were breathing at the beginning of the meditation? The energy of our attention to the breath changes how the breath is. When we observe the breath clearly, something happens to it. And you can probably notice a similar thing happening to the mind, to the awareness, as it stays with the breath longer and longer. So meditation is about making choices with our attention and then noticing the effects those choices have over time. So if you've noticed a difference right now in the way you're breathing or in the way your mind feels, that's like noticing your kite no longer on the ground, but up in the air.